Good morning. I'm Angie Bernardi, and I'm honored to serve as president of the Women's Society. Welcome, everyone, to our January Chancellor's Lecture featuring our Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, Dr. Anna Gonzalez. I also want to welcome a very special guest here today. Chancellor Mark Wrighton is with us. So I want to say welcome and thank you for being here. Many of you are members of the Women's Society, but for those of you who aren't, I don't want to miss this opportunity once again to invite you to join us. The Women's Society is an organization comprised of women of all ages and backgrounds who support scholarships, university programs, and lectures for the benefit of the university and the St. Louis community. We're proud partners in bringing to life Chancellor Martin's vision for Washington University to be in and for St. Louis. Membership in the Women's Society will allow you to enjoy opportunities to gather throughout the year and attend our lecture series featuring prominent WashU faculty. We welcome you to join us after the lecture today to continue the conversations with our members and enjoy lunch. Through the generous philanthropy of more than 400 members and friends, our scholarship endowment enables the Women's Society to award 2 Elizabeth Gray Danforth full tuition Washington University scholarships to students from our very own St. Louis Community College every year. Women's Society also enriches student experiences by funding student-led projects, recognizing outstanding students through our Harriet K. Switzer Leadership Awards, and hosting our Ida H. Early Composing a Life panel, showcasing the careers of inspiring women each year. We also provide support for our students with proceeds from our Bare Necessities shop, which features WashU clothing, gifts, our new Women's Society coffee blend, which you'll hear more about later, and graduation flowers. You may shop at Bare Necessities in person or online, knowing that all our proceeds support our students and our scholars. Before I move on, I'd like to take a moment to remind everyone our next lecture is Tuesday, February 13th at 4 p.m. Dr. Timothy Eberlein will join us and speak about the future of cancer research and patient care in St. Louis. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Pam Henson, Executive Vice Chancellor for University Advancement. Pam has been with WashU for more than 30 years, and we can't believe it, and was named Executive Vice Chancellor in 2019. This appointment made Pam WashU's first female Executive Vice Chancellor. When Pam took on this role, she dedicated herself to fulfilling the university's mission and engaging the WashU community, and she's done just that. Pam has led WashU's most successful fundraising efforts, including the Leading Together campaign and Make Way, an initiative that provides transformational opportunities to WashU students through scholarships, graduate education, and programs that contribute to a best-in-class student experience. Pam and her team of almost 500 are inspiring WashU donors around the world and gearing up for the university's next campaign, which will launch publicly in 2025. We're truly honored to have Pam with us today. Please join me in welcoming Pam Henson.
So I have one correction. Only in that today actually is my 31st anniversary at the university, but I didn't lead Leading Together. I was one of the senior staff members working with my predecessor, David Blasingame, who was our executive vice chancellor. Clearly, when I came here 31 years ago, I was really delighted by what I experienced during the interview process, and I imagined myself being here for a period of time, as a lot of people do, especially when they're earlier in their career. It's no small testament to this place, to this institution, its people, its leaders, volunteers like yourselves, that have really been the reason that I have stayed. That and an incredible team that I've had really the good fortune of building now for quite a few years. So thank you so much for having me here. And I want to thank Angie for her lovely introduction. Thank you so much. I am very grateful to the Women's Society. As Angie said, we know that you support 2 full scholarships for students coming from the community colleges, and that's incredibly important. as well as funding grants for leadership for many of our students, as well as student organizations. You're really helping us fulfill that mission. You're going to hear a lot more about our students today from our special speaker, who I have the privilege of introducing. So, you know, the landscape has clearly changed. I graduated from university in the mid-'80s. And I remember going to my dorm room, which was in a building that existed when my father, who went to the same university, picked up dates after World War II from. And, you know, it was like a 9-by-9 room, cinder block, phone on the wall. My parents dropped me at the curb with my belongings and said, "See you at Thanksgiving." Life's a little different on campus for our undergraduates today. Clearly different living experience, but it's also a lot more complicated. Today's undergraduates face a variety of challenges, not the least of which, I believe, are the mental health issues that we see our students challenged with, their financial difficulties, and even all of the things that are happening in the world that disrupt all of our lives, make all of these things so much harder. They're also under a lot of pressure to take on extracurricular activities. Mind you, a lot of that pressure is their own, I will say. Our students work hard to get here. I think one of the wonderful things that I hear from students once they arrive, however, is that they're in classroom with other students who want them to be successful as well. It's, you know, they've worked so hard to be able to be here, and they find it's not as cutthroat, perhaps, as they thought it might be when they get to Washington University, which to me says a lot about that student experience and what we do here. This morning, we're fortunate to have Dr. Ana Gonzalez, or Dr. G, as she is commonly referred to by our students, and she's leading the way for us in student affairs. She is nimble. She definitely has the pulse of our WashU students and is committed to implementing innovative strategies to ensure that we provide a 21st century higher education experience, a best-in-class experience. I will just tell you one personal anecdote. I've had the privilege, really, of experiencing Anna's leadership firsthand as my nephew Liam, who began this year, from New York in our McKelvey Engineering School, began his journey as a first-year student, and Liam has autism. And over the past 6 months, my husband and I are the surrogate parents locally. I have been watching Anna and her team really wrap their arms around Liam, making sure that he doesn't get lost in the shuffle, making sure that people are checking on him and ensuring that he's having a good experience, understanding that his needs are going to be very different than many other students' needs. And I can tell you that he is thriving. His first semester at this university was a huge success. He texted me a few days ago to say that he was back on campus and letting me know that he's now taken a job at the rec center, checking people in with their cards, which is a perfect job for Liam. As we said, he's going to be the most accurate card checker of anybody. People are not getting in there with somebody else's pass. But for me, that was a very personal experience. And, you know, I don't have children of my own, so being able to see that and understand how that works, and understand, too, that it's not about coddling, but it's about helping those students know that they always have a safety net around them. And I really believe that Anna has continued that tradition here and strengthened it even more. She's a national leader recognized in student affairs with over 30 years in higher education. As the Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, she actually oversees a number of areas. She oversees our WashU Center for Career Engagement, our health and well-being initiatives, Campus Life, and Bare Beginnings, which is our program for first-year students. Anna is well-known in her field. She's delivered a number of keynote addresses. She has published as an author, and she herself is a first-generation student. She's a true inspiration to all of us. She's also one of my most favorite colleagues, and I am delighted to present to you Dr. Ana Gonzalez.
It is such a pleasure to be here with all of you this morning, and so much better weather than yesterday. I tripped a little yesterday. I slipped on ice. The California girl. I know, Hillary. There's not enough salt for some of us, but it's fine. I'm fine. Anyway, thank you, Pam, for introducing me, for that lovely introduction. I'm thrilled to be working with you as one of the many, actually, women members of the Chancellor's Cabinet. It's really fascinating to walk in that space and not be the first and not be the only. And as a person who has to always do a lot of things first, in many sense, being not the first and not the only woman in such an important part of this institution makes me feel so good. So great to work with you. So I'm excited to share with you a little bit about student affairs and really what I think is where about 80% of the time that students spend, because they spend about that much outside of the classroom per week. And so when you think about that, and I want you to imagine that and what you think of student affairs. And I often have to explain student affairs to my own family, particularly to my mother, who even when she visited here, will look to me and say, okay, what do you do again? What is your job? I should actually have had her come, and then that way she could see what I do. So I want to share with you a little bit about that. We're going to go into priorities, and I'll tell you some important new initiatives that we have that have not been on the record yet. So you get the first little glimpse of it. So in its earliest existence, student affairs was about the need to manage students, matters of student conduct and advising. Over time, there was evidence of the need to take a more holistic approach to what student affairs is. How do we support students, and how do we advance student learning? The profession evolved to include areas such as career services, co-curricular activities, and residential life. We used to call them dorms, now they're residence halls, for example, and basically everything outside of the classroom. So after 30 years in higher education, I've seen firsthand how student affairs significantly impacts the student experience. Today, student affairs continues to evolve as it responds to changes in the world around us. So this is one of my most interesting pictures that I can find to try to explain student affairs and our students. So to help put this into perspective, here's a photo from the spring of 2005 at St. Peter's Square. Take a look at what you see in this image. Thousands of people in the square witnessing the first appearance of Pope Benedict after his election to the College of Cardinals. And except for this one person with the phone, the little flip phone, everyone else, and the one person looking at us, everyone else is looking up front, looking to see this event, this historic event. Fast forward to 2013, right? You will see that the key difference is that everyone is documenting this moment with their phone. Between the time that these two images were taken, smartphones has emerged, changing the way that history is recorded, changing the way that individuals experience life, and frankly, changing the way that students are doing college. Much like society's use of these cell phones, our students' paths have also changed and shifted in college. The world is vastly different from when I was a college student and I graduated in 1993. The things that I learned when I got my master's program, from my master's program, was so different than what I am dealing with now as a vice chancellor for student affairs with today's students. So I'd like to give you a few examples of the tectonic changes that we've experienced in the world, in my world, in your world, and in our students' worlds. So mental health among young adults has grown. So these are a few charts that show trends in mental health outcomes among young adults in the United States. When you look at teen depression, it has been relatively stable, but there's a noticeable increase in 2013, right there. Okay? Teen loneliness has also been stable, but again shot up around 2013. Life satisfaction was relatively high, but in 2013, we see a decline. And it is the same pattern for teen happiness. And we are seeing this now play out on our college campuses. Over the past 10 years, mental health is a significant concern nationwide. There was a recent article in the New York Times and in other publications that said that mental health is an epidemic for our young people. The next graphic actually shows political polarization in our country. So this is from the Pew Research Grant Center, and it depicts the distribution of Republicans and Democrats on their political views. What you will see in the 90s and early 2000s is there was a fair overlap and consistency in ideology between these groups. In fact, the way I grew up was that a group of mine, in terms of friends, would be mixed politically. We could share, dialogue, discuss, and debate. Over the last 10 decades, you can see we've been getting further and further away from one another in terms of our philosophical views. And with that gap widening, people are less willing to discuss and engage with ideas, people who has different ideas different from them. Again, we are totally seeing this play out on our college campuses. Students are dealing with the fear of being canceled out. They're dealing with the fear of their peers being unwilling to listen to them. And frankly, even as a staff and a faculty member, I do teach as well, that there is even a fear of individuals unwilling to learn new ideas. So now the recent headlines, and this reminds me of the importance of a sense of belonging and what that has for a student's experience. You may have seen in the recent headlines in recent years of how students are struggling to find a sense of purpose and belonging. And in most cases, this is true. We are seeing students lacking essential skills that they need to find success on campuses and in their careers. This research shows that students who feel a sense of connectedness and purpose fare better academically, fare better in engaging with others, and that they persist. It is also a predictor of student mental health. So taken all together, I say that two truths have emerged. The first is that the world around us is changing fast. And the second is that the needs of today's college students have changed rapidly, particularly over the last decade. And now, more than ever, university leaders across the country have greater responsibility as we face new challenges such as growing mental health needs, increased suicide rates, rapidly transforming career paths, and preparing students for the most diverse workforce in this generation, and frankly, in the world's history. And that is what makes WashU's emphasis on the student experience amazing, that the quality of our students' journey throughout their time at WashU and beyond is very important, because our strategic plan looks to see what it will take for us over the course of these next 10 years to have a pillar that invests in the student experience. Through this strategic planning process, we identified key anchors that are guiding our work in student affairs, and these are it. And if you notice that the anchors are actually intersecting with one another in different ways, and the most important part, our why and our purpose in student affairs, is at the center, which is the student experience. That everything what we do has to be about enhancing the student experience. So I'm going to go through each of these, and I promise I'll give you time for questions. I had so much fun. This is my little lecture time. So the first thing is healthy excellence. And people ask, what is healthy excellence? Healthy excellence is our commitment and our promise that the students who come to WashU will be healthier by the time that they leave. It is a bold promise, can be a little scary, but we want to do it. It is important for us. We all know that our students are talented, they are bright, they are highly engaged. And we all know that it is important for them to understand that excellence is not just in the classroom, excellence is not just being a leader, excellence is being mentally and physically well. It is all of that. Universities across the country are emphasizing a commitment to mental health and to addressing well-being holistically. But I want to let you know that our commitment is not about curing mental illness. It's not about being reactive. It is about being proactive. It is about fostering and teaching behaviors that will make them be well. It is not about the absence of disease. It is about acknowledging who they are and what well-being looks like and how to prevent if at all possible. That is what makes our WashU's commitment to well-being and our healthy excellence ambitious very different, and as Dean Hu would tell me, very WashU-y. So the next thing that I want to share with you all is career readiness, one of very important. So a little quick story about this is my father and my mother, as a first-gen student, that they knew that college was the way, but not experiencing it in this country, they didn't understand fully why. But they just knew I had to go to college. But if I would have told my dad, I'm going to go to college, but I didn't know what I was going to do afterwards, or I would have no job, he would have said, then just don't go to college, and you can be a worker like me, you can work in the bakery, or you can be a waitress like your mother, because we're fine, right? And so career readiness for me is so critical and so important, and frankly, it tells a little bit of my own story. This is a top priority for all colleges and universities, whether they know it or not, and it is a top priority for us. In the fall, we made a move to make one single career center, now known as the Center for Career Engagement. This was important for two reasons. One is that we wanted to make sure that we had the ability to scale up, and we wanted to make sure that one center reflected the fact that our students are actually in different schools. Over 70% of our students are either taking majors or minors in different schools. And so we wanted to make sure that they understood that career is not just about a major or a school. It is about their interests, and it's about a career community. And the second is we wanted all of our students to have an equitable experience in terms of experiencing all highly qualified career coaches and career services. And finally, and even though I said two, the third piece is we wanted to make sure that our partners, who are companies, for-profit and nonprofit, had one easy way to come into WashU to get the talent that we have. Instead of going to 7 different schools and talking to more than 12 people to try to get a job listing, they're just going to go to one tunnel. And it has made the world of difference. By providing this centralized point for every student, we are already seeing the benefits and the impact. This last fall, we already had the largest career fair in the history of WashU. We already have more programs than combined the past career centers did. And we are now looking into providing more services and programs for graduate students and professional students as well. So we are expanding our reach. One of the things that I do want to say in which we need to do better is the opportunities for students to get paid internships. According to the National Association of College Employers, or NACE, the students who had a paid internship or paid research opportunity received on average twice the number of paid job offers and a $20,000 higher starting salary. And that is on average. It's huge, I know. Get those going. However, because more than half of internships at for-profit companies are actually not paid, we need to do better and make sure that we are working with our partners, our families, and our stakeholders to help provide funds so that these students do not have to choose working a summer camp in the summer, not a bad gig, I did it myself, or getting paid at a company that they may want to explore working for later, or getting paid for an internship opportunity that allows them to get a better access to great researchers that then allows them to actually get accepted to the most prestigious medical school. This is another bold effort, but something we want to provide for every single student, a paid internship and a paid research opportunity. There is one of the things that we just did. This is one of our recent developments. In partnership with Pam's area, we are actually going to build a new center that will house both the Center for Career Engagement and an Alumni Welcome Center. And we had just announced this and talked about it with the trustees, and we just interviewed the finalists in terms of who will be the architects for this project. So recent news, just for you to know. So another key thing as we move from career is this leadership development. Now, every student is a leader. They come to WashU believing that and experiencing that. But what does this really mean? We want to make sure that our brand of leadership is unique and different. And one of the ways that we are doing that is we in Student Affairs is actually working with our academic partners so that our leadership development program is both with the classroom and outside of the classroom. So over a year ago, working with Kurt Dirks, we have formed a committee that has been made into something of a working committee that looks at leadership development both inside and outside of the classroom, that really focuses on purpose, on intentionality, on skill building, and also the ethos of ethical leadership in society. What great thing can WashU do for our society? One of the things that I think we can do is to say that our students will graduate from here being the ethical leaders that our nation and our world needs for tomorrow. I see some silent applauses in the room as well. I think that this can incorporate what the students bring here to WashU and what our faculty and our staff can help engage and teach them. So, a few more things, the sense of belonging and what this means. As we have more and more diverse students and student body here, it's not just about bringing in diversity and then expecting that students will just know how to engage one another, but rather that we provide welcoming opportunities for all students and encourage them to ask questions, to engage. What does it mean to be where you're from and who you are? So at the beginning of each year, all of our first-year students, and I lead the WUSAs and the RAs in this, and then I teach them how to do it for all the first years. We engage in a program, in a poem that I've done called Where I'm From. And it is an easy way for students to start sharing with their peers who they are and just where they're from. And this is what we mean by sense of belonging. It is about where you're from and that we celebrate you. It doesn't mean that these things are easy. In fact, these could be the hardest conversations. And I want to highlight one of the newest programs that we just started a little over a year ago called Dialogue Across Difference. And Dialogue Across Difference, or DXD, because we have to make it cool for the students, is an 8-week course for 1 credit that students take as an option in which they take really easy topics like racism, religion, and politics. So easy. Take one, focused on 8 weeks. But the first 3 weeks of the class is actually listening and getting to know each other, not debating, and learning how to listen, learning how to engage, that it is okay if someone asks you a question, not taking it that this is harmful if someone asks you a question. Learning how to engage and to respond and to listen in a way that is meaningful. It is not about polarization. It's about bringing you together, not in a kumbaya way, because I'm not a kumbaya person, but really both intellectual and critical, but in a humane way, that you will see each other's humanity. And that's what Dialogue Across Difference has done. And frankly, since October 7th, with what has happened in Israel, it is frankly so important for us to have programs like this. I do also want to say that the first pilot that we did was actually with Hillel, this conversation over a year ago of needing this idea of dialogues across difference. And so now, this fall, we so badly needed this, and we had something. And so we were able to offer it to students, even if they didn't take the class, to say, we have dialogue experts. We need you to engage one another. And so we will continue to build up this program because we need to make it be more robust. Finally, I just want to say that our ambitious plans and goals are motivated by students, and some are now alumni in this picture, and others that are not in this picture. What we want to do is to prepare our students to be the leaders that we need in this century and beyond. I personally could not be more proud of being at WashU and being a vice chancellor at WashU. This is a fantastic place with individuals and groups who have been here before, who are currently here, and as a almost WashU mom, my bonus child is going to be a first-year student in the fall. People who will be here as well in the future. Our future is bright at WashU. It is a great, fantastic place. And I am so proud to be speaking with all of you who have invested your own time, talents, and treasures to make sure that you continue to be engaged and involved. I also want to say that as part of our traditions of bringing great people here at WashU, we have 2 new folks that are going to be starting, one in the fall, or one in the summer, and one in a few days. The first is Stephanie Lindquist, our new Dean of the School of Law, and she's going to be coming in, I think, in August. And next is our new Executive Vice Chancellor and Chief Administrative Officer, Nicole Lomo, who starts on February 5th. This past fall, if you haven't met them already, are 2 new deans, and I already love them both. Our Dean of the Olin Business School, Mike Mazzio, as well as our Dean of the Brown School, Dorian Traub. They are fantastic, and like Pam and I have the opportunity to work at this great institution with a bold vision, all for our students. And so now I want to thank you all. I'm going to give you some time to ask me any questions. I hope that this gave you just a little glimpse of what we do in student affairs, and maybe next time if you're all having an event and my mom is in town, you can tell her what I do and what student affairs is. Thank you so much. Yes, and if you don't mind saying your name, just so I can start, thanks.
Oh, golly, okay. Vet Goods, I am so impressed by you. And you got big shoes, and you do a lot of moving around. What has been your biggest challenge?
I had to show the shoes. I'm sorry, what was that question? What has been your biggest challenge? Oh, that is a great question. Other than the snow, I'm kidding. That is a great question. I have to say, I'm first going to say this. I think that the pandemic and coming here in 2021 was weirdly made it easy for me to tackle any other challenge because I was in charge of shutting down the Claremont colleges. They were like, okay, you're going to order everything and make sure it all works for all the schools. And so I think I was like, well, after you do that, and you were in lockdown California was locked down for a year and a half or something, I was like, I think I could do everything. But here, I think the biggest challenge is to make sure that I understand and appreciate the culture that has been built over time at WashU and how you can infuse new and different things and making sure that that's all balanced, right? Because we could not be great here without all the people that have come before. And we need to make sure we introduce new things in there because our students are changing. And so when I talk to my team about, hey, we're really going to do this healthy excellence, I don't want Dr. Cherie LeBlanc to be like, wait a second, we've been treating our students, I've been here for 10 years. We've been excellent for 10 years. And so it's about managing what's happened before and honoring that, and then making sure that as we infuse new things. Is that helpful? Yeah. Hi, Hillary. Oh, there's a mic for you.
Hi, Hillary Anger Elfenbein, and I have a question as both a faculty member and a WashU parent, which is, what is the secret sauce by which you explain why WashU has been peaceful and safe and best in class among universities, and Chancellor Martin did not get hauled before Congress to explain difficulties that we haven't faced? And I'm just curious because we truly have been best in class. I'll say this as a Jewish faculty member, we've been comparing notes across universities, and this has been just better. No school has done better than we have.
And there's data that proves that. There's data where they actually interviewed thousands of Jewish students the last few months, and we actually, WashU was one of the schools that actually emerged as a place that they felt that was more inclusive than others. I mean, I was like, oh my gosh. So I'm going to give you a couple. And when I talked to my peers, we had a vice president. I'm part of this small group of vice presidents group that you're elected into. And they booed me because they said, oh gosh, WashU's doing well. We don't want to hear from you. I'm like, hey. You know, and I knock on wood, because I always tell people it takes like one, isn't it? You know, I want to say it's a combination. I do think that the calmness of our leadership and not jumping in and reacting was great. On October 7th, Andrew Martin called me and said, did you see? Yep, I did. Already emailing students, because we have a process in which we email the students who we know are from different populations. And we write, and their advisors, and we right away said, here's places that you can go to, here's care for you, we are here for you. So the first is, I think we stepped in, and instead of like doing all the external stuff, we went to our students first. So that's the first thing. We went to Hillel and Chabad and our partners, and then we've been meeting with imams, and we're like, we gotta get this right. I think that's the first thing, that I do wanna credit that. I think, and really the more important thing that I wanna credit really is our students. That's a secret sauce. Our Muslim student associations, unlike most in the country, at a rally publicly said that they will not say the phrase from the river. And they actually asked people not to say it. It was a big step. And we've had meetings with them. We didn't tell them they had to do that. But they understood that they're part of this special community that was built, and that, while they may differ politically and ideologically, they didn't want to cause harm. And I was really impressed with our students. I thought that showed maturity. And then I think, and that goes on, I hate to say sides, but on all sides, right? Both were really trying. And I think the third secret sauce is that we happen to have the luck of some of these programs already, right? We had dialogues across difference. So it wasn't disingenuous for our students when we said we have a dialogue across difference. They were like, oh yeah, that existed. I think in other schools, they felt like students are not trusting their administration because they were so reactive. That's what we were hearing. They were standing up programs that didn't exist, so the students were like, you're just doing that because of bad press. And here I feel like they're like, all right, this stuff was already existing. Our relationships with our religious affiliates are strong. So I think those are the three. Thanks, Hillary.
I have two questions. Back when I was an undergrad in the early 80s, there was a student peer-to-peer counseling group called Uncle Joe's. So I wanted to know if that was still around. And then I have sort of a lighter question. You know, I've sort of found out by mistake that there's 12 student a cappella groups. And I love a cappella, and you can't find a centralized calendar anywhere of when they're playing.
Oh.
Can you Can you do something about that?
Yeah, I'm gonna try. I want that too. Oh, believe me, because then I'm like, wait, what do I do? Like this coming weekend, I'm free, and I know the centralized stuff from athletics, so I'll go. But I'm like, wait, what's happening this weekend for the other groups? So I start with Be First to say it's an obsession of mine, and so the new student affairs website is coming out in August of 2024. I'm counting the days, and part of that I've asked the team is, let's put in all the student activity stuff and put it in categories and feed it all in there. So we're trying. So look out. I'll make sure that folks know here so they can tell you. For the first part, yes, Uncle Joe's is still here. And that's one of maybe the secret sauce of WashU, and when I talked about honoring what happened before. Uncle Joe's is an important tradition, an important service for our students, founded by our students. So when we talk about healthy excellence, and we brought in 24/7 counseling virtual, and then they still have the in-person that ends at 5, or if there's an emergency, we'll come out. We cannot also we can't say, okay, we're gonna have this virtual offering, and we have more counselors, and we have more educational stuff, so we don't need Uncle Joe's. In fact, we actually partner with Uncle Joe's and our other student groups, and to really say, how can you do this better? And also, how can you do this so that you're not excessively stressed either? So our role is actually to make sure to remind them that they are students first. So thanks for that.
I'm Dia Hoover, class of 93. Yes. Business school. I love that she brought up Uncle Joe's and then the peer-to-peer. I started the mentor-mentee program in the business school. And that was effective. We went to Dean Virgil and he said, let's do it. But I want to talk to you about how I am as an alum and as a business owner in St. Louis pulled into the WashU scene because I own Discover St. Louis Tours. So I give private tours, and a lot of my clients are prospective freshman parents. And I am on the front lines of tourism, so I'm always defending the statistics that make St. Louis not look as good as it should.
Yep.
And parents are always very concerned about that. And I explain it. I explain that the city's not part of the county, but we in Baltimore are the same way. And I live on the Hill, and I lived in U City for 12 and a half years, and I was on campus, and how safe I felt because I'm first generation, town of 3,000 people. But how are you combating that? Because I'm sure it happens when they show up on campus, and when you get here, you feel how great it is. But how is the university coping with that for students you want that the parents may be afraid to send them here?
Well, yeah, and I want to make sure we talk later. I'm hoping we use some of your work and services as we have events for students and parents as well, because we take them out. So when I first came here, I had many dreams, and there's things happen, and there's other priorities. But one of my dreams was we are in a fantastic place. And I used to come to St. Louis. I lived for 5 years at Champaign, Illinois, at U of I. I used to visit friends who worked here or just would come here, go to the Hill, eat really great Italian food and other things. And it was the best city, big city for us, for Chambana folks, because that's what we call ourselves. Because Chicago was too expensive. It was great, but it was just so expensive. And then we were like, we'll go to St. Louis. It's great. And Indy was just, I don't know. We would just go to St. Louis. It was fun. And so I always liked St. Louis. So when I came here, I was like, it's great. And whenever folks come here. And I remember coming, and I think students need to engage in this great city. It has a complex, it has sad, it has wonderful history and traditions. I mean, it's all of it, right? It is part of the American history that we need to actually understand, right? I'm a person of history. I was a business major too. So anyway, I digress to say, started a program called In the Lou, right? We got a committee, got to start a committee, ended up with a In the Lou. And what it is was, and I think last year or 2 years ago was the first group where we actually had students go out. And I said, let's not have them be tourists. Let us, as part of their bare beginnings, actually go out to the city. Let's have them, teach them how to use the metro. Like they use the bus. They get it for free, right? They get the bus pass. Understand that. Encourage their parents to see the city. And so it's the second year was last year. The chancellor and I actually go out with a group of students and we walk. We eat. We do the food tour though. But in part of that is someone tells us the history of that space, right? And we are encouraging more and more. That is no longer just for first years. We are now blossomed that program to try to offer, we need more support, but for all students to get engaged in the city, to understand it. You're gonna be living here for at least 4 years. You may even wanna actually live in the city after you're done. So that's first. The second one is through partnership with Advancement. We were able to get a grant last summer from the Pershing Foundation, and it is $10,000 a year for 10 students, for each, 10,000 each, for 10 students to work in a nonprofit over the summer. It was great. They're contributing to the community, and also they've all experienced the city, living in it. And so those are some of the things, and we need to do more, but thank you for that. Any final questions? Oh, yes. Oh.
Hi, I'm Teddy Macias. I'm really interested in the mental health part of your talk, and I know students felt a big sense of isolation during the pandemic, but what are the other main mental health challenges besides loneliness and isolation?
Yes. So loneliness, isolation, overall adulting stress, and the third is related to career and finance together, combined. And this is across not just limited income students. It actually is across even students who the term are full pay, or my own kid, I'll just say that, or even more, right? All classes, it actually permeates through. And part of it is because the relationship with money can be stressful if they don't know what that is, if they don't know either intergenerational wealth or not understanding how to manage it, et cetera. And so we are actually really trying to focus on providing more information for students to understand what we're calling financial well-being, or understanding what this is. And we're even gonna start with doing things like, okay, how do you spend your bear bucks? Because if they overspend, I see some of the moms smile, by week 8, they're like, I'm out of money and I can't eat. And then they're stressed, right? And so it is huge, all the way to then their career engagement and picking a major because they think, oh, this is what's gonna make me have money, and not really understanding it's actually not that, right? It's not just one thing that's gonna lead to this career that's gonna have you have a livelihood. And so it's a huge stressor for students. It actually starts even before they come to college. It's that, so thanks. All right, so I think that is it for me. I'll be hanging around for a little bit. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you.
Before you go, of course, we're going to give you some of our coffee.
Oh, yes.
Women's Society Blend, roasted by women, and partner with a women-owned business here in St. Louis, Caldi's. So we just want to make sure that, and it supports our scholarships.
Thank you.
And I also want to thank you because I have 2 graduates, so I am a mom of 2 WashU students who are gainfully employed on the East Coast and the West Coast, and it was a journey, and I think all these wonderful things you're doing for our students, I want to thank you. I think the future's bright. We have all these WashU students coming through, so thank you.
Thank you, and thank you. I'll be right back. Thank you so much.
And speaking of centralized scheduling, I know somebody had that question. We at the Women's Society have a very nice schedule here that you can pick up, but there's a couple of exciting things not on the schedule that I wanted to share with you. And on February 9th, actually, the Women's Society has been invited to a fireside chat with Professor John McWhorter and Chancellor Martin at the Graham Chapel. You'll be getting an invitation for that. So that's February 9th at 4:15 p.m. And there's also, in addition to our upcoming lecture from the medical school, we've got another fashion event. Don't be surprised. It's April 1st. Speaking of fashion, Michael Kors will be coming here to St. Louis to Graham Chapel. So the Women's Society will be getting more information about that as well. So be sure and watch your emails for those invitations and pick up a schedule. And also the last thing I want to do is thank our technical team back in the back, always making sure we're online and in person and you can hear us. and also our advancement team, Judy and Colleen especially, for helping us organize today. And it is a special day since we're having lunch, so please enjoy and continue the conversations. Thank you so much for being here.